There are children who have been through assessment after assessment. They may have been diagnosed with ADHD. They may have developmental coordination disorder or DCD. They may have sensory difficulties, learning problems, speech and language difficulties, emotional regulation difficulties, or behavior that adults find very difficult to understand. And sometimes every one of those concerns is real. But there is another question we need to ask. Does the diagnosis we already have explain the whole child? Because for some children, something important may have been missed, and that something is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD. FASD is a lifelong neurodevelopmental condition associated with exposure to alcohol during pregnancy. Alcohol can affect the way the developing brain forms and functions. It can also affect other parts of the body, but one of the biggest reasons FASD gets missed is because people are still looking for a particular face, so I want to address that first. Most children with FASD do not have the characteristic facial features. In fact, more than 90% of people with FASD do not have the 3 recognized sentinel facial features. So a child does not need to look different to have FASD. They may look completely typical, they may be sociable, they may make good eye contact, they may even appear very capable when you first meet them. And yet, underneath that, there may be significant difficulties with the way their brain processes information. FASD can affect memory, attention, planning, organization, impulse control, emotional regulation, learning, language, motor coordination, and everyday independence. One of the areas I pay particular attention to is adaptive functioning. Adaptive functioning is about how a child manages everyday life. Can they get themselves organized? Can they remember instructions? Can they understand risk? Can they manage a sequence of tasks? Can they apply something they learned yesterday to a new situation today? This is where children with FASD can sometimes be very misunderstood. A child may be able to tell you the rule. They may know what happened yesterday. They may promise that they will not do it again. And then tomorrow the same thing happens. Adults may say, "He knows better. She is choosing not to listen. She never learns from consequences." But sometimes this is not about deliberate disobedience. The child may be struggling with working memory, processing speed, understanding cause and effect, or transferring learning from one situation into another. This is important because FASD can look very much like ADHD. Children with FASD may be inattentive, impulsive, restless, disorganized, forgetful, emotionally reactive. And some children genuinely have both ADHD and FASD. The question is not whether the ADHD diagnosis is wrong. The question is whether ADHD explains everything. For example, does it explain significant learning difficulties? Does it explain very poor everyday independence? Does it explain major problems understanding consequences? Does it explain the child's vulnerability in social situations? Does it explain why the child seems much younger than their chronological age in everyday functioning? Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. The same applies to DCD. Children with developmental coordination disorder can struggle with handwriting, dressing, sports, using cutlery, riding a bicycle, motor planning, and everyday coordination. Children with FASD can have these difficulties too. They may also have significant sensory processing difficulties. So again, I would not say that a child with motor problems must have FASD. That would be inappropriate. The question is broader. Does DCD explain the whole child? If the child also has major memory problems, learning difficulties, emotional dysregulation, poor judgment, sensory difficulties, problems with everyday independence, and there is known or possible prenatal alcohol exposure, then it may be appropriate to think more widely. And this brings us to one of the most sensitive parts of the assessment: prenatal alcohol exposure. This conversation must be handled carefully. Parents should never feel blamed. That is not the purpose of asking. Some pregnancies are unplanned. Some people drink alcohol before they know they are pregnant. Some mothers may have experienced alcohol dependence. Some pregnancies may have happened during periods of significant stress, trauma, or adversity. And for adopted children or children in care, the information may be incomplete. So when we ask about alcohol exposure during pregnancy, we are asking for medical information to try and understand the child's development. Think about FASD if the child has a number of these features, and seek referral for further assessment. Speak to your GP or pediatrician to find out more.